Hey, winos! Welcome to part 2 of We Are Family. I got all my sisters with me, and brothers,
Woo!
and uncles, and cousins.
And co-workers.
The whole shebang.
And the darn C-suite. What?
So, in part 1, we were talking about why HR professionals are so isolated and burnt out, and the impact that has on us. I hate it when things has.
I mean, has are the worst.
So, in the spirit of keeping things real, Trish and I are recording this back to back. So, yes, I may have had a little bit of wine already. So, hey! Part 2 is going to be off the rails. Anyway, just kidding.
But we're family, so it's okay.
Right? We're family. There's always that drunk aunt at the party that,
Oh, Auntie Jules.
Yep, I'm Auntie Jules today. So anyway, so that brings me to the wine. We are not drinking different wines because we were not going to open multiple bottles or boxes.
Boxes in my case, yes.
So I am still drinking the Natura Rosé from Chile, and it is still lovely. What about you, Trish?
I am also still drinking my Nighthawk from Boda. This particular Nighthawk is their Malbec. See, I did it right this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's still it's like I said, bit jammy, but really excited about the idea of turning it into a sangria. Again, and if you like sweeter wines, this is your jam.
Ba-dum-bum.
So bad. But hey, you know me. I love Boda. They do an awesome. The Nighthawk series is fantastic. It's just not for me.
Yeah, well, that's what we say about wine all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like, just because one of us doesn't like it doesn't mean one of our listeners isn't going to love
I'll
it.
drink it.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong.
It's not undrinkable.
Right. Yeah. No. It's just not. They have so many good ones. This is just not my preference. That's what I'll say. There we go. So again, our last episode, we did discuss those isolation rates, the power of community, but I need to start off with my stats for the rest of the world. So let me give you a few here. Let's talk about the impact of engagement. Again, when we're talking about engagement, we're talking about an environment that is supportive, nurturing, growth-oriented for your employees. Oh yeah, and engaged employees are 64% less likely to feel lonely because they do have those stronger team connections and the support. Employees who feel their opinions matter at work are 39% less likely to experience loneliness. And let me just give you a couple of more here. Having the opportunity to do their best work at work reduces the likelihood of feeling lonely by 37%. Now, just one more thing. You guys, we talk about engagement all the time, but I want you guys to think of it in a different way this time. I want you to think about not just engagement, but like truly connected. So let's look at those same kind of stat ideas in this way. 74% of people, when they feel connected to others within their organization, actually feel more engaged, and they're 81% more likely to stay with their organization. That comes from, you guys know we love Christine Porath and all of the research she does. This comes from something that she did, I believe, with Tony Schwartz. So really cool when you kind of switch that.
I love that way of looking at it. And, when you were talking about the last stat, having the opportunity to do their best work at work reduces the likelihood of feeling lonely by 37%. It made me think of our episode with Natalie and Gen Z and their work needing to be tied to an impact.
Oh, I love that. Great
Right?
connection.
Ah, thanks. Hey,
Look at
so
you.
even though I had a rocky start to the episode, the brain is still working. It's making connections.
Connections. I was just thinking the same thing. Oh my gosh. It's almost like we're sharing a brain. Our brains are connected.
Well, yeah. Yes, our listeners are getting the dorky side of us today. But sorry for that, y'all. But hey, you take us as you get us. That's what being family is all about.
Pause for effect and to take a drink.
Yep. So, the stats that Trish just shared show how important it is to have a support system around you. And one of the interesting things that I noticed is that when I was looking for stats about, the difference it makes, like we talked about in part 1, you and I both knew that there was a stat out there that said if you have one work bestie, it changes the game. And when I was looking up just for statistics about how having a support system changes things, it was really interesting because even though I put in something along the lines of, how do you, I can't remember the exact search term, but it was something like statistics relating to having a support system at work when you're in HR.
Oh.
But most of the results came back for how HR can help be that support system. So again, there is a huge disconnect in, I think, a societal perspective of HR's own needs to be part of that connection, to be part of that community. HR is the one that we look to fix these things. But who's fixing HR? Right? And that's why we're talking about this. That's why these episodes are so important, because it's very difficult to find statistics relating to HR. Like the isolation and burnout was not super difficult, but finding other statistics related to how HR is impacted by things and how HR is feeling and how HR is doing is much more difficult, because most of the studies are focused on how HR can solve the problem, not when the problem is impacting HR.
I don't even know what to do with that. Other than I can hear the audience going, yeah, duh,
right?
Yep.
Yeah. So in this episode, in part 2, we want to focus on how you can build your family, your community outside of your organization, which is easier than building it within for all the reasons we talked about in part 1. So, Trish, what's your first tip or suggestion for how people can build a community or their family with people outside of their organization?
Put away the technology.
Ooh.
It's my absolute favorite.
Tell me more.
I know, right? So the whole idea of technology, the idea of social media, of Facebook, Insta, all of the others that us old people aren't on. The idea is that we're supposed to be connecting, but what we're actually finding is we are actually more disconnected than ever because we're not connected in a real and meaningful way. So obviously, you guys who have come and met, where I shouldn't say you guys, you ladies, y'all, everyone, you guys and ladies who have come and met with us, we've connected one-on-one in the real world. And I would encourage you to do that at your jobs, outside of your jobs, because if you put away the technology, again, disconnect to connect. Put it away, meet face to face, you will notice that the dynamic completely changes. Even with Julie and I, we've been friends for, well, more of our lives than we've not been friends. And woo, that's crazy. But like our interactions in person are so much different than when, even though we have a great time doing the podcast or talking over the phone or texting, the in-person interactions are just, they're so much more meaningful. They really speak to my heart. And so I would just remind y'all that, like, while checking in any way is good. If you think about a person, send them a text. If you think about them, give them a call. If you think about them, send them a funny meme on whatever social. But don't forget about that in-person connection too. And Julie, you actually kind of drew that when we were at NOHRC, when you were talking about like going out and meeting people and doing events. I think that's what got me thinking really about this idea of disconnecting to connect.
I love that. First of all, I love that phrase, disconnecting to connect. So kudos to you. You should trademark that. Just saying.
I may or may not have stolen that.
Okay, well.
Or a similar version.
No, but I think that is really important, especially today, in today's world, because it is easy to convince yourself you don't need to leave your house.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And it can take a lot, especially, during COVID, we all got used to wearing very comfortable clothing and, only needing to be dressed up from the top up when we were on Zoom. And so like some days.
I still do that when I'm teaching my classes. Come on.
Right? Yeah. So some days, yeah, you're like, no, I'm not putting on real clothes to go to this event. But I know I've written some jewels of wisdom about this, and I find that when I force myself to do it and I go out and I have those in-person meetings with people and I connect with people, they have been very meaningful. Yes, you're going to meet some people that you're like, whatever, I could have done without that. But usually there's going to be at least one or two who you're like, yeah, I really connected with that person, like that was really great. So I think that is really good advice. We get it. Some days it's harder than others. I'm a 100% an extrovert, but as I get older, I feel like I am 50-50 now. And as much time as I spend outside with people, I need the same amount of time or more to recharge. So I get it.
100%.
100%.
Yep.
There is an energy expenditure there. That is a lot. But if you want to find your family, your people as quickly as possible, find those sorts of events. So I know this podcast is going to air after this event has already taken place, but I mentioned it at NOHRC, but we're starting a wine and dine here in Cleveland.
So jealous.
Well, you can start one in Michigan, northern Michigan. You can start one. We can get that going. But it is a networking community for HR professionals. It's very low pressure, low key. It's once a month. You meet at the same restaurant, same time. Ours is going to be the second or third Wednesday of each month. And you just show up and you meet people who are in the same field as you, and you see who you connect with, and that's it.
I just think that's brilliant.
It is.
No presentations, no selling, it's just like, hey, come and chit chat.
Yeah.
Make a connection.
Right. And again, it's, we don't have as many of those opportunities anymore because everything is so global, and it's harder to find those local opportunities. But that's really where you're going to find your people, because that's where you're going to find the people that you can go to coffee with or go for a walk with or go have a glass of wine with or whatever the case may be. So it might take some research on your part to figure out where those places exist or where those groups exist, but try them out. You might go to a couple and you might be like, no, I didn't really, that didn't click. And you might go to another one and be like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. So you got to put yourself out there to get the reward. And that can be hard for a lot of people, I know, but I think it's worth the effort.
And I think going along those lines, one of my absolute favorite moments of at least our particular part of NOHRC was when we had someone stand up and say, hey, I am an HR person of one. How do I do this? How do I connect? Almost immediately, someone else stood up and said, connect with me. Here's my information. That, even now, what is a week and a half later or whatever it's been, I get goosebumps thinking about that. And I think that, so for everyone who's out there going, oh, people don't really want to connect, yes, they do.
Yeah.
So you can join things like SHRM. You can find your local chapters. There's state chapters, there's local chapters. Even up here in northern Michigan, we have I finally found one. So like it takes a little bit of looking, but you can find it. And then when you have these opportunities, really connect. And it might be someone at a similar organization, maybe the same size, the same industry, or maybe it's just that you had this kismet connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we're going to talk about all of those things in a little bit more detail. But I also just wanted to say, I think that sometimes the thing that stops people from going to those events is that they feel like they don't have anything to offer. Like they're the ones going to find a connection with someone else, but it's that imposter syndrome, right? Like, what could I possibly have to offer other HR professionals? Maybe it's because you're brand new in your career. Maybe it's because you fell into HR and you feel like you don't really know what you're doing. Maybe it's just, who knows? Maybe whatever the reason. As Trisha was just sharing with that story about the person who stood up and said, I'm an HR department of one. How do I find my people? There are other people that need you. They need whatever it is you have to offer. Maybe that is compassion. Maybe it is just a friendly ear. Maybe it's somebody who will follow up and reach out every month. Maybe, you never know what it's going to be. And I think like it's so easy, especially, so I'm speaking to all of the people who are newer in their HR careers out there, because I know I certainly felt this as a new attorney, and I was an older attorney for my newness, when I started being an attorney, because I had taken, I was a social worker for 4 years before I went to law school. So I was older than everybody. But I think that there is this tendency to think, oh God, I don't have anything to offer, and that can be really intimidating, and it can hold you back in a lot of ways. I would encourage you, if you are listening to this, find those events and go to them anyway. Just put that aside, carve out a little box, put it in the box for the night, put it on the shelf, go to the event. Again, we're not saying that you have to have like all of this stuff to offer people. It's about connection. You are looking for a connection. Other people are looking for a connection. And maybe somebody's waiting for you.
Well, and Julie, I think at the conference, you brought up a really good point, which is honestly, if you meet someone, you hear them talking, you all are engaged in a conversation, and they do have the skills or expertise that you want to learn or that you find fascinating or you want to know more about, ask them. People love to talk about themselves, right? They love to share. And so I think that is another tendency people have, is they're like, oh, I don't want to approach this person because I don't want them to think I'm just looking for something from them. Well, if you're asking them and being honest, like you said this, and I'm really interested in learning more, I'm not really sure if there's anything I have that you might need to know, but I would really love to get to know you more, pick your brain, and somehow or another, I mean, Julie, you're a great example for me. I feel like, there's so many things that and I will approach you about, and then next thing you'll say something like, wow, I never thought about that. That's blah, blah, blah. And I'll be like, oh, that's so cool. You know what I mean? And I know that people have said that to me about myself. And so I think that we just have to say, you know what? Chuck it. Let's just get in there and say, here's what I'm looking for. I was so impressed by this. People also love flattery. Like, I was so impressed by this. Please tell me more. Can I talk to you about it? And then if a friendship develops, a friendship develops. If it ends up being more of a mentor-mentee relationship, that is also a connection. There are multiple different types of connections out there.
Right. And I think this is one of our big things. Like, don't think of it as transactional. It's not.
Bingo.
Number one, HR people love to help.
Yeah.
But even outside of HR, like I felt that when I started a business because I didn't know anything about starting a business, you know. But if I asked any business owner, could I buy you a cup of coffee and just pick your brain? I don't think I ever got a no. Like
I love
people
that.
want to help. It's part of our human nature to help. And
To
so,
connect.
yes, to connect. So people are going to want to help. So don't be afraid to ask, you know, especially HR. Like that's probably the friendliest audience you could get to ask somebody for help. You know what I mean? Um,
Hmm.
and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have something to give in return. Chances are you will give something in return, even if it is allowing another person to help you, because that helps them feel like they've done something, given
Yep.
something back. You know, we've talked a lot about that. But you don't have to go into it thinking about that. You know, as
Mm-mm.
you just said, it's really just about finding those connections. Like the for me, you know, we've talked about this before, but the whole term networking has become this whole thing. It's a word everybody hates, and it's got all these, you know, negative connotations and all that kind of stuff because it has sort of become a transactional thing.
Yeah.
Um, but when you know, when I was a younger lawyer, newer lawyer, they talked to us a ton about business development. And, you know, you got to get out there and you gotta network and you got to get business, and it was very transactional.
Yeah.
And when I made the switch from thinking about it as transactional to I'm just gonna look to meet people I connect with for one reason or another, not only are those the people that I eventually got business out of, because you tend to do business with people who you like and trust. So there you
Huh.
go, you know,
Really?
right? But also those connections turned into relationships that have been very meaningful in my life outside of work.
I love that so much.
You know, so I think I said this at the NOHRC conference, but like, don't paint the picture before you know what the heck you're painting. You know, you don't know what a lot of these connections are going to turn into, so don't put that kind of pressure on it. And on that note, I'm going to give a shout out to a book that I love called The Go Giver. It's a very short book. Um, it's a little bit cheesy, just forewarning, but it's also drives home the point about what we're talking about and how you shouldn't be looking at what you can get out of meeting somebody new, but look at what you can give that person that you just met is kind of the so instead of the go getter, it's the go giver.
I love that.
But then
Oh my
it
goodness.
so anyway, I don't want to give the book away, but that's a really good quick read that I think can help people reframe their thinking about networking, connections, relationship building, all of those good things.
Well, and I think too for our introverts out there, that's kind of a huge multiple points that you made, right? Because for our introverts, they're like, oh, this is a horrible idea, going out and doing things and transactional and networking. And if you start to think about it as making connections, and those connections, again, what they're going to look like, we don't know. But just saying, hey, I'm going to go. And if I sit there with one other friend and I'm having my wine or my cocktail or beer, it is as we're recording, by the way, National Beer Day. So a happy National
Oh,
Beer Day, everybody. I know. I almost was going to do a beer, but then I was like, eh.
yeah.
It'll be so late when this airs. But whatever it is for you, do it. I as Julie mentioned, I am everybody I know would consider me an extrovert. But it does take more and more energy and effort, or I love my alone time. I mean, I've always liked my alone time too. I'm not gonna lie, being curled up in a corner with a book and or maybe under a tree with a book. But So I just want to make sure that our introverts out there don't feel like we're leaving them out. I want y'all to know that your people are out there and your people are in HR. There are a lot of introverts in HR. You are not alone. You just need to take the time to make your connections, and those connections are going to make you a lot better at your job.
Yeah, and probably happier as a person.
Oh,
Um,
100% drop the mic moment.
yeah. But I also want to say on that a PSA to the extroverts out there. If you are inviting someone to an event like, and you're inviting 400 people, I don't really care. But to each one of them, particularly if you know they are an introvert, say, like, hey, I really hope you show up. I'm going to be looking for you. Or, you know what? If you're nervous about coming, just come find me. I'm going to be there. I'll be waiting for you. You know, I have started trying to do that because I do realize that it can be really hard for people, especially if they want to show up, but they're like, I'm not going to know anybody. You know, she's running the event. She's not going to have time for me, whatever the case may be. I've really tried to start being cognizant of that and saying, no, you come find me. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be looking for you. I can't wait to see you, you know, and like touching
Amazing.
base with them over and over, especially like right before the event. Really hope I see you tonight. You know,
Yeah.
like just to
Amazing.
give them that extra little push, because if you are an introvert, like I even have it sometimes, like walking into a room full of people I don't know, I still
Was
don't love it,
just gonna say
right?
that. Was
So
just going to say
yeah, so for an
that.
introvert, I can't imagine the anxiety,
Oh
you
my
know?
gosh. No.
So yeah, like I want to be that friendly face on the other end. So to all the extroverts out there, remember, it is not as easy for other people as it is for you. Make it as
Especially post COVID.
right.
I think
Make
even extroverts are struggling a bit.
Yeah, yeah. So whatever you can do to make it more comfortable for that person to show up, do it.
I think one of my other things that I would want to talk about is kind of going along with what you said, be accountable and be reliable. We
Hmm.
talked a lot about that at NOHRC as well. And I just think that that's incredibly important. I know that I need to focus on, and so I'm just going to go on a personal thing here. I need to focus on being more accountable. I have met some phenomenal individuals over the last 3, 4 weeks, but my what's going on with me personally, with my family, my house flooding, and all of this other stuff going on, I am probably not being the most reliable person. And I'm certainly not holding myself to the accountability standards that I normally would. And so I think that I would say to people out there, if you are going through something like whatever it is, it doesn't matter, and you do consider yourself as accountable and reliable, most often reach out and tell people, listen, I need to let you know that right now I may not be as responsive as I usually am. I may not be as good of a friend as I normally am. I may not be as reliable in my job duties as I may take a couple extra reminders. This is not an excuse to do poor work. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying to you is we are human and we do have things outside of work. Our other quote unquote lives do matter. And so in general, make sure you are a person that people can that they can count on, that you are going to do what you say. And if you're experiencing some tough times, then just let them know. That's part of, again, a true connection, is being able to say to someone, listen, here's what's going on with me, and I may need a little extra push, a
Yeah.
little extra pull, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point. I think too often, probably more so in HR than other fields, we tend to keep everything in, because we
Yes.
got to be the strong ones. But some of the most Impactful connections I have made are when I have been vulnerable.
Exactly.
So all our Brene Brown friends out there, vulnerability, it is a superpower.
Here, here.
It is not easy, but it can open doors you would not normally expect. And I'm not saying that you should use that as a strategy and pretend to be vulnerable. I'm talking about
Or as an
real,
excuse for when you
right,
mess up.
right, authentic vulnerability. But,
Authentic, one of our other
being,
favorites.
yes, being real with people can give you opportunities to connect that you might not otherwise have if you don't open up. So I think that's important. Couple other things, just because I know we've talked a lot about like what to do once you find those connections, but finding those connections might have gotten a little lost in our discussion. So we'll cover those. So Trisha mentioned people at similar organizations, so like the same size or industry or makeup. So if it's a family owned business, if it's in a particular industry, those people can always be really helpful because they probably understand some of the same struggles that you're going through. So sometimes outside of HR groups, you can find those people at chambers of commerce. You can find them at like trade industry conferences, at um, local small business, communities, things of that nature. So that's always a good place to look. Um, I think Trisha mentioned people in similar HR roles. So maybe like somebody who, if you're an HR generalist, somebody who's an HR generalist at another company, if you're a manager, director, whatever the case may be, the higher you go up, the more important it is, I think, to find somebody at that level. So if you're an HR director or an HR business partner, finding somebody at another company where you can just sort of talk a little bit more freely than you might be able to talk with a colleague at your specific workplace. That can always be really helpful, right? Right? Yeah.
I love communities, like HR communities, blogs, forums that we can get involved in where you don't even know the people. You don't
Yeah.
know where, maybe you know where they work, maybe you don't, but like just different people engaging in conversations and sharing ideas and just asking a question. So here's my situation. Jane Doe, blah, 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 blah. They are amazingly beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the others is to ask your colleagues for introductions. So if there is like a specific type of person you're looking to meet, so maybe they, as we mentioned before, have specific skills or expertise that you're hoping to gain. Maybe they have a particular perspective that you really admire, or because not all of our workplaces tend to be the most diverse on the planet. Maybe you don't see anybody who looks like you in your role, and you would like to find somebody who looks like you in your role. You could ask colleagues for introductions for that purpose as well. So, but asking people, like saying, hey, I'd really love to meet somebody who could help me with this, or who I could talk to about this, or who I could just connect with over this. That is a great way to open up your network. And again, 99% of the time, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I have 3 people for you off the top of my head, or 5 people, or 10 people, or whatever the case may be. So, on that note, little tangent, but I would say never turn down an invitation to meet with somebody. Even if you think, I don't have anything in common with this person, I don't know why we're meeting, I don't know. Some of those meetings for me have been so like pleasantly surprising, where I didn't think, like, I thought, oh, this is going to be a waste of my time. I got better things to do, but whatever. I said years ago, I will always take a meeting if somebody asks. And then I have the meeting and I'm like, I just made a new friend. That was amazing. So I would say that would be the other thing. If somebody offers coffee or a meeting or asks you, just say yes.
I just say yes.
Just say yes.
I think that is our final, really, I honestly just say yes. I mean, what a great way to create connections. Now, if maybe they happen to be a serial killer or a stalker or something, maybe say no. But
The next time.
other than that, yeah. But no, I think that is a really great way, because it is so important. I think that if y'all haven't figured this out by now, what we're talking about is creating connections, connections inside work, connections outside of work. The idea is that the more that we work together, the more that we create these connections that allow us to be more authentic as our work selves, more authentic as our personal selves, that we're all going to be a lot happier. We're going to be able to get through those hard work days. We're going to be able to offer grace when we don't want to. And so I just want to say, Jules, I love that. Say yes.
Say yes. Cheers.
Cheers.